Hello and welcome to the Serpent's Lair. My name is Sami, psychoanalytic psychotherapist and psycho historian from Finland. If you are listening this episode from YouTube, please use the original text that I have made. Because I'm not native English speaker, I might do some mistakes, but usually I try to fix them afterwards, at least in the text. In this podcast series, I'm slowly building my theory. I am moving between history, art, folklore, and mythology, and psychoanalysis. In the history part, my main focus is in studies of witch trials, how things really were. I also try to recognize elements of folklore and mythology behind history and art. In art, my main focus is in witchcraft movies. I'm not super interested in psychoanalytic film theory, even I sometimes refer to it. I'm more interested in phenomena that are more close to the clinical work with patients, and my main focus is in understanding ourselves better as individuals and groups. Serpent's Lair.
It's useless to try and explain it to you. You wouldn't understand. It all seems so absurd, so fantastic. All I can do is get away from here as soon as possible. How come I never noticed that before? Susie, if they don't leave, where do they go?
This time the topic is so massive that I have divided it into two parts. In this first part, the main focus is in the movie Suspiria 1977 and in the Furies, Erinyes, and woman's aggression, and finally Parasite. In the second part, I'm going to talk about Suspiria 2018, more about Furies and so-called primitive superego. The provocative imagery of Suspiria draws extensively on the long tradition of pagan Christian rituals, popular culture, and witchcraft in Europe in general and Italy in particular. Mamma, solo per te la mia canzone. The Quincey's essay Levana and Our Ladies of Sorrow provided Dario Argento with the spark of an idea which was further ignited by tales from his then wife Daria Nicoldi, who told him of her grandmother's stay at music school playing piano, which was run by a coven of witches, or at least they practiced some black magic. Furthermore, within these three films, Suspiria, Inferno, and The Mother of Tears, are several references to esoteric traditions such as Hermetism, Gnosticism, alchemy, and astrology, as well as esoteric figures such as Fulcanelli and Rudolf Steiner. Suspiria was shot using Technicolor, like also Wizard of Oz and Disney's Snow White. Scenes from the latter are also replicated in the movie.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one?
Of course, the fairy tale Snow White is clearly an initiation story where there is a symbolic murder of evil stepmother and girl growing to womanhood. Places and buildings in Suspiria have connection to the history of Nazis, like the beer house, the marketplace where the blind pianist is killed by his German shepherd dog, and the dance academy itself. Argento was also enthusiastic about the knowledge that three mothers appear in early Jewish mysticism, according to Rabbi Jill Hammer, who has studied mystical Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation, for over 10 years. The three formative elements are air, water, and fire. According to Hammer, Hebrew letters Aleph, Mem, and Shin are collectively called the three mothers, while the mothers of the book Sefer Yetzirah are never personified in any anthropomorphic way. They do introduce the idea of the feminine as a creative force, or more accurately, multiple creative forces. The book of creation relates that the three mothers manifest in three separate realms. These realms are heaven, human world, and the great deep or underworld. These same elements can be found from the human body, belly, head, and chest. These three mothers are like God's partners. They exist in relationship to each other. In a sense, they remind one of the Matronae in Northwestern mythology, ancestor mothers depicted in groups of three, whose feminine powers manifest in a group, not by themselves. Yetzirah is present also in Suspiria, near the ritual chambers. There are a lot of text on the walls of secret chambers. You can find Interiora Occultum, Sadducismus Triupatus, that is a book of witchcraft by Joseph Clanville, Elohehia, Elohim, Jehovah, Hebrew names of God, Helena Marcos as well, Martyres Sancti. Metamorphosis refers perhaps to Ovid and Apuleius, and the Civitate Dei. Abibus refers perhaps to trio of goddesses, bee maidens known as the Triae, Melina, Caledora, and Daphnis, virginal sisters, nymphs. In Italy, the mother is of course a strong figure, Mama. And it's emphasized matriarch on the one hand and Catholicism on the other. The Virgin Mary, Madonna, the supreme ideal of a woman who is like ultimate Snow White, purest of them all. If you think Italian mother and nonnas in the stereotypical way, the Italian mother is always cooking. In Suspiria, however, you should be careful what you eat. I think in here you can understand the nature of the so-called malevolent nurture, like Willis had put it. It is also the maternal abjection. The witch wants to drain you and dominate you. The witch functions as stand-in for the subversive potential of female sexuality and solidarity. She constitutes a threat to the entire hierarchical structure of gender subjectivity. She must be mutilated and destroyed. I have referred in the previous to the psychoanalytical theory of Andre Green about the rejective, depressive dead mother. This is a perfect example where the zombie mother is destroyed and also her memory is destroyed in the end of Suspiria. Also, like in Snow White, the bad and intrusive mother must be destroyed to gain power, at least in the fantasy, over the emotions that you have been left outside. The dead mother is beautifully expressed, especially in the original text of the Quincey. I will read an excerpt from that. The second sister is called Mater Suspiriorum. She never scales the clouds nor walks abroad upon winds. She wears no diadem, and her eyes, if they were ever seen, would be neither sweet nor subtle. No man could read their story. They would be found filled with perishing dreams and with wrecks of forgotten delirium. She groans not, but she sighs inaudibly. Murmur she may, but it is in her sleep. Whisper she may, but it is to herself in the twilight. De Quincey, 1845. I spoke in the last episode also about Donald Woods Winnicott's theory about mirroring. You cannot recognize yourself from the face of a zombie.
You can run from Suspiria. You can hide from Suspiria. Who's there? But you cannot escape Suspiria.
From the trilogy, I like Suspiria the most, and also the beginning of Inferno. I even like the movie Black Cat, 1989, known also as Demons 6, De Profundis. Sadly, the Mother of Tears is not so great, even it has its moments.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
Perhaps the most famous trio in the art history is the Weird Sisters. Shakespeare's Macbeth was on the stage already in 1606. The Macbeth was published after Shakespeare's death in 1623. In the film, I like the Akira Kurosawa's Throne of Blood the most, and after that Polanski's version of Macbeth. In Kurtzel's version, the acting and scenery are great, but the film doesn't bring anything new. According to Diane Perkis, 1996, Shakespeare's Weird Sisters are more like prophets than witches. In the Macbeth, they raise the questions of meaning and truth. But they are, as she has pointed out, a low-budget, frankly exploitative collage of randomly chosen bits of witch lore selected not for the thematic significance but for its sensation value. According to Willis, 1995, the witches are like artful manipulators of unconscious process, speaking just enough to make Macbeth burn in desire and leaving the rest to his own transferential projections. They enact the uncanny return of a woman's world once familiar, now made strange through a process of enculturation which takes elite sons from nurses and mothers and puts them into the hands of tutors, fathers, and patrons.
Bubble, I'm in trouble.
Quite ridiculous cauldron contents was copied into the movie Hocus Pocus 1993, but it fits in there perfectly. The messiness, disorder, and rather simplistic otherness involving a body part from every racial or religious other do indeed invert the order.
In the quiet town of Eastwick, where nothing ever changes, 3 beautiful women are about to discover powers they never dreamed they had.
The Witches of Eastwick 1987 is a kind of phallic fantasy. I will return to this later. It is important to note that in Suspiria there is no devil like in many other movies with 3 witches, especially in Hollywood movies. The motif of triple goddesses is widespread through Europe. Usually the number of 3 is not so clear, like in the Scandinavian Nornir, in English Norns, are sometimes a collective group. We cannot tell for sure how many there are. 3 seems a good suggestion, but so does 9. So we cannot tell for sure how many there are of these feminine beings who in some way represent the notion of fate. Norns are making choices, making decisions, or passing judgment, always in transitional situations like birth, death, battle, typically situations where people feel that matters are not in their own hands. Moirai fates are the similar female supernatural beings in ancient Greek mythology, and very similar are Parricide in Roman mythology. It can be difficult to tell these different kind of beings apart, as they do tend to merge more or less into each other, yet without ever becoming entirely synonymous with one another. This was from Beck Pedersen 2007. The matres or matronae are usually in a group of 3, but sometimes they too can be a much larger group. They were associated with motherhood and fertility. Matres and matronae are often bundled together, but they are different. The mother goddesses wear their hair loose and do not wear a diadem like Matronae. There are preserved pictures and altars all over Europe, but very little other information of them. This was from Beck 2009 and Garman 2008. The Erinyes were usually described as 3 maiden goddesses or a large group. They were personification of curses pronounced upon a guilty criminal. As a group of 3, their names are Alecto, unceasing, Magera, grudge, and Tisiphone, murder, retribution. The number of the Erinyes are different in different sources, like in the Homer, they usually appear in the plural. Some scholars seem to think that there was only one real Erinyes goddess, like Harrison 1899. They punished men for crimes against the natural order. They were particularly concerned with parricide, intentional killing of one's father and or mother. In Roman culture they were called Furies, in English Fury. Erinyes can be found from the Theogony, that is a poem by Hesiod. The Orestes is a trilogy by Aeschylus concerning the murder of Agamemnon by Clytemnestra, the murder of Clytemnestra by Orestes, the trial of Orestes, the end of the curse on the house of Atreus, and the pacification of the Erinyes. It was Aeschylus who first represented them with snakes in their hair. Erinyes are mentioned also in the Aeneid, written by Virgil, and in the Dante's Inferno, plus Sophocles, Ovid, etc.
It has been said that every legend and myth known to mankind is not entirely without some truth.
There are few interesting movies from the topic. The Gorgon, 1965, presents a very Medusa-like Megara, one of the sisters.
Megara. It's said that when mortals looked upon her face, they were turned to stone. Leave Vandorf before it's too late. What is it you're afraid of? I'm afraid for you.
In the movie Le Régine, Queens of Evil, 1970, three sisters work for the devil.
Guarda, non lo trovi straordinario? Dicono che sia sotto un incantesimo.
Secondo un'antica leggenda, chi resta nel castello fino all'alba decide del proprio destino, nel bene come nel male.
The Furies, 2020.
They've put these in our heads. I think that they're watching.
The Furies can be found also from the opera and ballet. More about this in the next episode. In the comic book series Sandman, Neil Gaiman depicts Furies as the kindly ones. They are a mixture of different triple goddesses, Erinyes, Norns, Moirai. The name Eumenides, which signifies the well-meaning, is a mere euphemism because people dreaded to call them by their real name, and it was said to have been first given them after the trial of Orestes. They gave mercy to him and became as a protectors of people, Semnai Theai of Athens. In some sources, the unwritten laws, miasma, are ordained by the Fates, the Moirai, having the same mother as the Furies, daughters of night. Usually the Erinyes are not included with the Moirai among the children of the night, but are said to have sprung from the blood of emasculated Ouranos in Hesiod. The Erinyes are more ancient than Olympian deities. According to Werner, 2012, The Agamemnon describes the Erinyes' existence mainly in dramatic and thematic, not biological terms. In contrast, Hesiod and Aeschylus present them as biological one. Hesiod presents at the story that the Erinyes originate from Gaia. The Erinyes were well known as spirits of the underworld who caused problems for the living. The link to the underworld and to the dead is important. In literature, their attacks often looked justified. They punished those who transgressed the rules of civilized behavior, particularly the rules that protect the relationship between parent and child and between other blood kin. It has also been discussed that Eumenides, in Greek Eumenides, the kindly ones, and Erinyes are two different groups of gods. Or it can be, like Jane Harrison has stated, that the gods are as many as the moods of the worshipper. It is as his thoughts about his gods. If he is kind, they are kindly ones. When he feels vengeful, they are vengeful ones. How did the Furies look like? The Erinyes' dress is black. Black is the color of death. In Aeschylus they appear in dusky cloaks covered in snakes, mostly in their hair, and with blood dripping from their eyes. Their appearance is like Gorgon. But what is also interesting is that in the beginning of the play they are almost like invisible, and they come visible only in the end of the play. Blood, imaginary, attached to the Semnai Theai, honorable goddesses, becomes a signifier for upholding civic order, inspiring fear and commanding respect. Their final dressing in red robes also draws importance to Aeschylus' use of color in trilogy. In the end, there is a change from the night to the light. This was from the Werner 2012. According to Maxwell Stuart, 1973, in some sources they are described to have black bodies and white faces. They are also described to have featherless wings. This could be like bat wings, like they are depicted in Dante's Inferno. Magical solution is psychologically an omnipotent solution. I cursed my neighbor because I have had an accident. Accidents actually don't happen to me, so there must be an explanation. Revenge is the key word in the curse.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
Revenge is a compensation for the humiliation and loss suffered. A very typical witchcraft case happened between older and younger women. There was a request for food, or as often in Finland, alcohol, and after that, rejection. After that, curse was mumbled, time passes, and something bad happens, and the accusations were made. You can read more from the Willis 1995. The aggression was expressed in both sides. Nowadays, direct expression of aggressive feelings is often more accepted for the men than women. This is rooted deeply in our society. However, women often express their aggression more indirectly than men because it's not so well accepted. Women are easily doomed as a bitch or a witch if they express their aggression. Shame is often followed. How women and also men can express aggression indirectly. Cut out a friendship, not communicating, pass another, use power, humiliate the other, infidelity, the use of sex as a tool of power, reckless sex, the use of children as means of revenge, harming children, leaving children without inheritance, the pursuit of perfection, the pursuit of justice, self-harm, violence. This was from the Reenkola 2008. Of course, these accused witches were using aggression also to protect themselves, like Eilola 2006 has pointed out. The aggression of Erinyes is like in the Old Testament, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. The word parasite comes from ancient Rome, probably from the word parricidas, lethal violence committed by children against fathers or parents in general, according to Biscotti 2018. Between 7 to 18% of parents have been victims of physical violence by their adolescent or adult children at some time, a figure that rises to 29% in the case of single parents. Mostly violence is done by males. In the cases with the actual killing, the alcohol is often involved. This was from Moirai and Toivo 2018. Chief physician of a psychiatric prison hospital in Finland, Hannu Lauerma, stated in his lecture that a Finn grabs a knife drunk. A dispute can arise from liquor or mockery. Very typical mockeries related to sexuality, sort of homophobia. Finnish psychoanalyst Pentti Ikonen 2000 wrote in his article about sexuality, narcissism and violence that the use of violence may be the result of disappointment. Insult can lead to narcissistic rage, like in the opera Carmen. Phallic stage of development has been said to be associated with aggression, sadism, and violence. If Oedipal development fails, so-called phallic protection may remain dominant. Violence then becomes a central feature of sexuality, like often in the movies of Dario Argento. They can be seen as phallic fantasies. The battle happens between phallic and castrated. In Suspiria, the castrated piano player is killed indirectly by a dog. Our snake, the devil, be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, to earth and to heavens. This was a version of Lord's Prayer that the children told and said they have learned this in the Blåkulla, Blue Mountain, that this was a way to pray there. This was written down by a priest of Helsingland in Sweden. The fear what might happen to children was in core of the witch hysteria in Sweden. People were really scared. According to Ankarlu 2002, in December 1664 in Sweden, Dalarna, a 5-year-old boy from Älvdalen was testified against his own family. He accused his grandmother and his mother of having a horn with grease, a kind of flying ointment which they used to brush a cow so they could fly to Blåkulla. This time the court dismissed it all as a childish fantasies or dreams, but few years later these kind of stories were taken seriously. There were a lot of these possessed children, and in the times of King Carl XI, 1675, it was an upper class entertainment to visit the nursing homes to see them. In those times, for the death sentence, there should always be at least 2 or 3 reliable witnesses. One of the accused witches in Älvdalen was Marit Nilsdotter. She did not confess. Against her was one adult woman from the village and 2 of her own small daughters. In Stockholm, there was an 13-year-old boy, Johan Gries, who was first jailed. He accused his own mother, but also many other people. A lot of people came to jail to ask if he had saw any of their suspects in the Devil's Mountain. In the court, he said that he had lied all the time and about everything, but it was too late. He was executed and then burned. The reason for the harsh verdict was that he had lied and wanted to take his loved ones to death. This was a crime against the God, and he had loved these fantasies about Satan, and therefore he had mixed into the devil's plots. The one who demanded innocent blood for judgment had surrendered to Satan's service. In Finland, at the town of New Karleby, there was a trial in 1678. In this trial, a 15-year-old girl accused many women of traveling to Blåkulla. Among them was her own mother. Women stayed tough, and they gathered a lot of so-called counter-witnesses who testified of their good reputation. This was enough, and no one was convicted. This was from Lappalainen 2018. The child's memory has been found to fluctuate widely and is very susceptible to suggestion. Misunderstandings also have a big impact on remembering things, the stories heard by others, and manipulative questions played a large part in the statements of the child witnesses of the witch processes. This was from Eilola 2003. This episode is coming to an end. We have all fantasies of killing our parents. I have news for you. Parents have these fantasies too. When the development is successful, child transforms these emotions by defensive mechanisms and is able to neutralize these thoughts. There have to be more than just an impulse that these fantasies come true. Aggression against one's own parent is a taboo question. threatening images can be left in the background. God can be caring, or the image can be very black and white. The black and white state of mind is dominated by the threat of revenge and paranoid horror. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. On the other hand, a purely good image of God is not without problems either. This was from Hürk 2012. Suspiria is not openly sexual movie. I borrow from the Reich 2001 words of Peter Lehmann. Fetishistic representation of the female body in the cinema intends the absence of the male body. There's a lack of male body in this horror film. Classic film theory is that the male projects his monstrous anxiety onto the female. The projection of male anxiety does not just involve the representation of female victim. In the case of Suspiria, it also embraces the figure of the witch. Finnish poet Vea Koskenniemi has written that there is no wall so high that the Erinyes cannot get over. Revenge can be incubated for a long time, and the spiral of revenge is difficult to break. Okay, I'm going to end here. Thank you very much for joining. There are a lot of sources this time. Serpent's Lair. Bengt Ankarlo 2002 Witch Trials in Northern Europe. Bethel Nicole 2021 Child Witches in Dillinger. The Routledge History of Witchcraft. Biscotti Barbara 2018 What Kind of Monster or Beast Are You? Parasite and Parricide in Roman Law and Society. Boak Peter 2018 Gender and the Historicity of Parasite, a case study from the 19th century North American West. Freud Sigmund 1950 Totem and Taboo. Matti Hürk 2012 Mustavalkoinen vai huolta pitävä Jumala, psykoterapia. Lehti 31.3 Lappalain Mirkka 2018 Pohjoisen noidat. Murajeva ja Toivo 2018 Parricide and Violence Against Parents Throughout History. Murajeva 2018 Degeneracy and Abuse Attitudes to Violence Against Parents in 19th Century Russia. Renkola Elina, Nainen ja viha, Woman and Hate. Christopher A. Pharaon, 1985, Aeschylus and Attic Juridical Curse Tablets in the Journal of Hellenic Studies. Jill Hammer, 2017, The Three Mothers, Feminine Elements and the Early Kabbalah in Feminism and Religion. Harrison Jane E., 1899, Delphica, The Erinyes, The Omphalos, The Journal of Hellenic Studies, Volume 19, Johnston, Sarah Iles, 1992, Xanthus, Hera and Erinyes, Transactions of the American Philological Association, Volume 122, Maxwell Stewart, PG, 1973, The Appearance of Aeschylus Erinyes, Greece and Rome, Volume 20, Number 1, Werner, Cynthia, 2012, The Erinyes in Aeschylus Orestes, doctoral thesis in Victoria University of Wellington. Helen H. Bacon, 2001, The Furies, Homecoming, Classical Philology. Janet Case, 2019, Apollo and the Erinyes in the Electra of Sophocles, the Classical Review, Beck, Barnoemi, 2009, Goddesses in Celtic Religion, Cult and Mythology, a Comparative Study of Ancient Ireland, Britain and Gaul, Deborah River, 2015, Interpretatio Romana and Matronae Iconography, Carmen Alex G, 2008, The Cult of Matronae in the Roman Rhineland, an historical evaluation of the archaeological evidence, Nornir in the Norse mythology, Karen Beck Pedersen, the University of Edinburgh, 2007. Bye.